are passing.
Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone. I was kind of curious, to see which Stefan would introduce me with, but I was like, yep, that's very much on point. Making video games and learning Clojure is the topic, and there's a lot to cover, so I want to get started immediately. Here's a brief outline of what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about me, because it's sort of like the red line that binds everything together. We're going to talk about games, we're going to talk about Clojure, we're going to talk about jamming, and when we reach jamming, I hope you know what this is about. And in the end, there's a learning section, where I hope you learn something from what I learned, maybe. So yeah, let's talk about me. I'm Lisa, and I have a special something for you for this conference, actually. I made stickers. They look like this. I have about 200, I think, and you can get some after this. So something to look forward to. My daytime I spend at Travis CI. We do hosted continuous integration. You can talk to me about this. We also support Clojure and a lot of other languages, so you can just hook us into your pipeline. But I spend my free time with a lot of other things, like the local Untitled Chapter here in Berlin, and I sometimes organize, but also help out at Cryptoparties, where we teach people tools to protect their privacy online. And I'm also part of ClojureBridge Berlin. But most importantly for this talk, I like playing and I like making video games. So let's talk about games. Hope this works. Okay. Maybe first of all, why games? And I used to just games in general here when I talk about video games, but I guess you can also apply most of the stuff that I talk about to board or card games. So for me, video games are very much fall in the realm of artistic expression, just as people write stories or make music or make films about whatever interests them or moves them. You can also make video games, and this is also the special factor for me in this how do you express yourself is the expression of experience, where I see when you make a game that is based on an experience that you have, you just it's not a display or something to consume or simply consume for other people, but they need to play it themselves, so they need to make the same experience sort of that you create for them. It's a much richer exposure to what you actually want to say, and I find this really interesting overall. There's also this the facet of the interdisciplinary media where you're not just writing code to make the game itself work, but you can draw the graphics or you can code the graphics. You can make the music or you could code the music, and then of course you have a story that binds everything together, and it's just whatever part you want to touch or specialize in, you can do, and there's just so much you can do, and this is exciting and really amazing, and I love it. Another thing that I thought about when I was thinking about the media aspect is also the hardware aspect, because when people play games, they play them on their phones, or they play them with a keyboard, or they have a home entertainment system, I don't know, a PlayStation, something where they have a controller. But there's a lot of more ways that people can interact with games. There's the rise of VR, where just you are immersed in the game. But you could build any kind of controller that you want, and there's this famous thing or tool that is called the makey, where just put anything that sort of can have electricity run through it as a sort of touch control, and there's this banana keyboard that you can use with real life bananas, and it's fun, and it's there's ways that inspire people to interact with stuff. And there's some a game jam. What a game jam is, I'm going to talk about in a second, but there's the old control jam, which just focuses on different ways of having input devices for games. So there's all this thing about games. And of course, it's fun, because it's I make games as a hobby, and it needs to be fun to keep me motivated. And there's a lot of fun to be had. So what kind of games? You might imagine it that it's not, I'm not coding the next Assassin's Creed or Battlefield or FIFA Soccer. No. I'm talking about indie games. What is an indie game, in case you're not familiar with the whole concept at all? Indie games are games that are not funded by a big publisher, and they have little to no budget, and usually you don't expect the game to actually make money for you. They're created by individuals or small teams that just have an idea and just want to do it. And since you have no pressure from the publisher and you don't do it for money in the first place, there's this absolute creative freedom that you can have to do all kinds of stuff, which is the best thing. Okay, so of course you can sit at home and make games by yourself and never talk to anybody, which is fine. I do that sometimes. But usually I do make games at game jams. So what's a game jam? So think of it as a jam session combined with a hackathon. So people get together and create games from scratch. So most of the time these people have never met before, which is brings a whole new dynamic of I don't know this person, and this person has totally different ideas than I have, but we could make a game together, which is fun, yeah, not even team making, but also personal experience, sort of. And there's usually a time constraint, so somewhere from 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours is the usual thing, but there could also be game jams that are that span weeks or even months, depending on what the theme is, and there's usually a theme. There are some some jams that I just listed, because if you can click, you might have noticed the colorful underline indicates links, so you can read on if you're interested. But enough of that. I'm going to walk you through some games that I previously did that are not written in Clojure, but just to give you an idea. And there will be animated GIFs, so be aware of maybe flashy lights or something, but there's no sound yet. So there's a game called Seashell Seeker that I did in Lua with Love. It was my first attempt of creating sort of an AI and a chase algorithm. You're the black circle is the player, which is followed by octopi and hunting for the seashell. I did a game called Sarah versus Coffee, which is about living the tech life of typing code and drinking coffee. Which is you talk to the barista, and then at one point you maybe get a coffee. Yes. I do a lot of games in JavaScript or vanilla JavaScript, because I'm actually bad at learning frameworks. And sorry for the bad quality, because this is a GIF that was recorded of a YouTube video where the game is played in the browser, but you can use a MIDI keyboard as controls. Or the key, your regular keyboard if you don't have a MIDI keyboard, just to control the shark. If you want to know the backstory to this game, it's actually really funny, I think. But yeah, so some of the stuff that you can see. Also, all the games are available on GitHub, so you can check them out. Okay, enough of games. This is the Clojure conference, after all. So. How did I get into the Clojure community? So the communities I hung out before were the front-end communities or the JavaScript communities, and also the Ruby community through Rails Girls. So community, in-person community is very important to me, because just talking to other people, how they code stuff, but also see okay, what do they think about when they think about code? And all these things is really interesting. And so it happens that I got into Clojure through people in the Ruby community that converted over to the Clojure universe. And at first I thought bye people. But then they did a great thing, because they organized the first ClojureBridge workshop in Berlin. And since I knew them well, I was yeah, I'm going to check this out. So ClojureBridge, there was already a shout out to ClojureBridge in the beginning of the day, but this is a long time ago, so I'm going to recap. ClojureBridge offers free, as in beer and software, Clojure programming workshops for underrepresented groups in tech. Here in Berlin, we focus on women and non-binary people. So yeah, in ClojureBridge in Berlin, we had 4 workshops so far since 2015, where I participated in the first one and kind of liked it for a reason I will explain in a second. But I didn't touch Clojure at all afterwards. I was like, yeah, it's nice, and life goes on. Then when the second workshop sort of was in the making, I was like, yeah, maybe I should go and help them and maybe get into Clojure a little bit more. Then I helped organize the second workshop, but still didn't touch Clojure code-wise at all. Up until the third workshop, I was like, okay, I really need to start writing Clojure now. And then I coached at the third workshop and also did a game for this workshop that you see in a second. But then I fell back into the organizing role. But yeah, so I actually started programming things like games in Clojure last year, basically, beginning of last year. Yeah, so one of the things that got me into this, why Clojure and games would work, is the app that we built, or the workshop app that we built, because it's not like a web app or something. It's a graphical app using Quil, which is really nice. It's as a lot of people said today, a Clojure wrapper around processing, and it's just really nice to get some sort of graphical thing up on your screen. And I do front-end development a lot, so I like when graphical things appear on my screen. So yeah, easy graphics and interaction is the nice part, because you have very nice, it's very easy to get the mouse or some sort of keyboard input, and it's this is almost a game, graphics and interaction. There's something there. We can work with this. And yeah, so I actually started to learn Clojure. And this is my advice, or actually how I approach learning any programming language. You need to program something. You can spend a lot of time reading books and articles and talking to people, and this is all nice, and you can go to conferences and things oh, these people are so smart. But in the end, you have to type it yourself, because that's, I think, how you learn programming. And the motivational factor is also really important, and I think I learn best, and I think a lot of people do, is not just by going through this tutorial, and in the end you have another Twitter bot, and it's yes. I don't even use Twitter, so all these tutorials about creating Twitter bots are not very meaningful to me, but games are. So it's finding a project that suits you and create something on your own. This is really cool. And I always like having things with a deadline, because you start a new project very, very motivated in the beginning. It's yeah, it's going to be so awesome. And then after 3 weeks, you're I don't really want to touch it. And so it's cool, really good to have a deadline. It's okay, up until this point, and then I don't have to touch it ever again if I don't want to, which is fine. So let's talk about games already. Yeah, so the next session is called Jamming, where I walk you through games that I did mostly at game jams, but not all of them. And there will always be the name at the top, and a link to the GitHub repo, the name of the library, framework, engine, however you want to call it. And I think this is it. Let's see what happens. So this is the first game that I ever did in Clojure with Quil. It was for the Lisp game jam, Spring Lisp game jam. There's such a thing. The theme of the jam is create a game in a Lisp. Clojure is a Lisp, so it's totally valid. And the story behind the game is that I got my blood checked for inefficiencies, deficiencies, or whatever it's called, and the sole result was lack of vitamin D. I was did I not spend so much time outside? Is this because I'm a programmer? I don't know. So I had this idea of you have this slot machine kind of thing in the middle with the icons, and then you can, if you have 3 in a row, you can choose if you stay outside or if you stay inside or go outside. And depending on this, because I just assume if you stay inside, you will do something productive that gives you money and success in life. But if you go outside and enjoy the sun, you will just be a happy person. You can just it's a decision between being a happy person and having lots of money. So this was done in Quil, and it's just really simple, draw some graphics and some random stuff, and then figuring out where you click and invoke a function based on this. And this sort of went well. For the third ClojureBridge workshop that I was talking about, I wanted to do like a more interactive-y thing. So I did anti-Pong because I was sure that every attendee would know Pong, but I wanted to give like a twist. So it's a single-player game where you're in the center, and the balls don't reflect. And there's also this weird bug where, like, depending on how fast the ball is, you could get multiple points, and it's a bit weird. But the attendees loved it. It was nice. So this was also done in Quil. It's just like, I was thinking like one evening of like, I need to do something before the workshop tomorrow. So it's like the deadline thing always works. So in the meantime, the vitamin D Quil thing got ported over to the ClojureScript version of Quil, which is really cool. So for the next game jam, like we started off, my girlfriend and I, with, this is where the mermaid reference comes from. We started with quil-cljs to like have a thing in the browser, which is just like easier to share with people who like don't want to run a jar on their computer, or do not know how to run a jar on their computer. So this is the game, the mermaid situation, where the theme of the jam was one room, so you're a mermaid trapped in a room. And we basically made an entire like point-and-click thing where the entire scripting of the objects that you can click and whatever happens after you click them is basically a gigantic hash map. Oh wait, I think it's a vector of hash maps. So it's like, if you click here, what vanishes and what adds to it. And it was 2 days, like a weekend of intense coding, and then like 5 minutes of scripting all the things together. But it was also like very nice. And yeah, this like ClojureScript thing got me hooked. I was like, it's like almost like all my JavaScript things that run in the browser, but in Clojure, it's sort of cool. But then again, I started looking for more Clojure game engines, since Quil and quil-cljs are not really like game focused, more like graphical visualization focused. So I looked up play-clj, which is a wraparound libgdx, which is a gigantic Java game-making framework. And I did this at the Berlin Mini Jam, which is a monthly one-day jam, so I have 8 hours of making a game. And the theme was Cats, Dogs, Nighttime, which was actually the theme I proposed to this jam. And I wanted to do a game where during the day you're a dog chasing squirrels, and during the night you're a cat chasing rats. But I only could make the cat move and spawn rats, so there will always be more rats. I was like, and nothing was working. I was like really frustrated, and I was like, nah, whatever. I'm not gonna touch this again in the near future. But yeah, so it's like, I should probably give this another chance, but I'm really not in the mood for this right now. So for the next jam, which was the Global Game Jam in January, I tried play-cljs, which is by Zach, who also was speaking earlier today, and will afterwards in the lightning talks. And he also made a play-cljs, which is a game engine, but it's a wrapper around p5.js, which is a JavaScript port of processing. So there's processing again, but play-cljs is like more game-focused in like the things that it exposes. So I made Being Famous is Hard, also on a weekend where the theme was waves, and there was a lot of like surfing-related games, but I didn't feel the surf. So here you're a famous person. You notice the sunglasses and wearing all black. It's like, and white sneakers. So you're working in at the studio, and you have like a limited time, like break time. I think it's 2 minutes, and you have to collect 3 things, like an apple for your vitamins, obviously, a croissant for the carbs because you need to run on carbs, and coffee, very important. And the thing is, you also have like 100 units of fame, and there is, as you like walk through town and like try to get like all the things, ordinary people appear. And the more time you spend around ordinary people, your fame decreases. So there's 3 ways you can lose in this game and no way to win, where you either run out of fame and like the studio fires you because nobody wants to work with a non-famous person. Your time is up, and the studio will also fire you because you're an unreliable person. It's like nobody wants to work with such a person. And the 3rd way you can lose is like you actually manage to collect all 3 things in time. But then I would also say that your life is pretty sucky because you can't spend time with people, and you're just like constantly in a hurry, so bad life choices, basically. So this is the kind of game that I like to make. Yeah, so the last game I'm going to demo, and I'm going to try to play it live here, I hope it works, was like actually the weekend after the other jam, where there was, what's it called? The Lady Problems Hackathon in Berlin, which was like a weird hackathon series where you could win VC money or something. And I went there with a colleague, and my colleague was like, hey, we should just make a game. Like, yes. And I just like had such a good experience with play-cljs. I was like, oh, this is really nice, with like instant evaluation of like all my things. I was like, let's do a game play-cljs. So the theme was kind of like solving lady problems. So we focused on street harassment. And the game we made is sort of like Pokemon meets a girl walks home alone at night. So you're a vampire, actually. And let's see if this works somehow. I probably need to quit full screen somehow. Does this work? No. No. Okay. Let's see what happens if I click this. Okay. It appears here. We can get this. Nice. Okay. There might be sound involved. I don't know. Okay, I can hear it here. It's probably not working on the thing. So I was very happy when I actually figured out that, like, how you would like animate sprites and stuff. I hope this is loud. It's like the music's actually really nice. So when you walk through the streets, and the game is called Cryptoparties, and if you're new to Berlin, you might be familiar, like you might not be familiar with the Club Mate, which is like Berlin's favorite carbonated, caffeinated drink. So the story is you're out in the street to buy a Club Mate, but there's all the street creeps that you need to fight. Luckily, you're a vampire now, so you can like actually like trigger a fight. And we decided to like not only make them creeps, but also raise awareness to like some feminist issues, like Pokemon pickup lines and stuff. Yeah, with like clothes that never fit and have no pockets. It's a struggle. So you can like either ignore the creep, but it's not very effective. But because you're a vampire, so you have some superpower, you can just like. This is very effective, and this is like how you go through the game, and we have like reproductive rights issues and this sort of stuff. So I'm going to close this, and it was really cool. It's like 2 days of like basically pair programming with my colleague who is also not a Clojure programmer, but is like just a very smart person. And the audio, like there's so much like live coding audio stuff in Clojure and ClojureScript, but I just wanted something that loads an MP3 and plays it, and it was really hard to find, so I just used the JavaScript library. It was like, yes, JavaScript interop, it works, it's nice. So I hope this is like okay. Okay. So yeah, this was like all the games I wanted to show you. I hope you had fun. So there's a quick recap of the game engines or like libraries that I tried. So there's Quil, easy to get started, but not really made for games. There's a lot of like manual stuff you need to do to make this work. There's quil-cljs, which is the whole thing in the browser with like all the fun that's in the browser, and there's a lot. Then there's play-clj, which is the probably good choice if you want to do like real cross-platform game development. I might try it again, maybe, but I probably stick to play-cljs for now, because I did such a smooth experience. Like I made 2 games with it, and I'm really proud of both of them. There's of course also like engines that I did not try yet. There's if you're into like game dev at all, you probably know about the Unity 3D game engine, which is like the big thing, and there's the Arcadia project that brings Clojure to Unity. But I've never tried that because Unity still doesn't run on Linux, and I usually have a Linux computer for my game dev. There's some new like browser-based engine, Clojure and Phaser, both like wrappers in some sort of level for existing JavaScript stuff. And I included a link to Lambda Island's blog post, which like is an overview and also like documentation rating post, which is really nice. Yeah. Learning. I learned a lot. There's this thing about functional game programming where also people that I know from the Berlin game community were asking, what about game state? Because usually when you do a game, you just like mutate state all over the place. It's like here's some counter and like here's some life bar and but it's actually really nice. The like quil and also like play-cljs and stuff. They use like basically you have like in play-cljs you have a state atom that you can like you use atoms basically, and in quil there's like the fun mode where your update function always takes like the new state and so on, and it works really well. Yeah, also John Carmack, who knows about games, not so much about Clojure, I guess, but about games, says it's awesome, and I agree. I had some like weird moments where I was like trying to like calculate bounding circles, and was like I needed power, and I couldn't find it, and I was like, where like first of all maybe I assumed the wrong name for power, but it turns out it's not there, and I needed to like add a dependency. I was like, really, like for power? So that was like, I don't understand. But I also had like a mind blow moment with like I guess it's homo iconicity. What I found was we just had one atom that just like we would swap like the function that it contains, like a list basically, and just like called the atom at like various points throughout the game, but just like depending on what's in there, different things happen. So I was like, this is so smart. I'm not sure if it's good practice, probably not, but it was really cool. I also had this like weird, like all the time pressure on me moment. It's like, I don't get this. Why is this so weird? When I realized cont p, and case can do the same thing. Like, I was like, okay, there's 3 ways for me to write the same thing, and I used them all over the place. And it's like because I didn't realize it at first, and I was like, am I writing this wrong? No, it's right. Oh no, it's like it's cont p that I'm using. It's not. Yeah. Weird stuff. Takeaways, because this is the end, sort of. Games are fun, and making games are fun. And if you've never done a game, I would highly encourage you to do, or like at least try it. It's okay, you can throw it away and like never look at it again. Clojure is fun. It was actually really fun, like getting into the language itself and like, figuring out like how you would put stuff together. Yeah, and try both at the same time for maximum effect. Another takeaway is, of course, the stickers. And you can see the slides here, and like most of the stuff is up on my GitHub, and I'm happy to take questions.
So where are the questions?
Yeah, thanks for the awesome talk, and you also have the quiz chart. I just want to know about the backstory of the shark game.
Oh, okay. I went to a poetry slam, which is like a spoken word contest, and one of the poets like tried to break the ice with a joke, and the joke was if you watch the movie Jaws, like in German Der weiße Hai, backwards, it's about a shark that spits out people that at one point open a beach bar. And I thought it was hilarious, and I laughed out loud, but nobody else did, so it was actually very embarrassing for me. But then I liked the idea of like a shark spitting out people, so it's like if you play the game, like the beach bar that is like floating around will fill up with people, and if enough people are in the beach bar, there's going to be a party. So that's the game.
More questions? Apparently not.
Apparently not.
Thank you again.
Thank you.